Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Sunday, September 19th, 2021, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Texas gubernatorial race. This race in which Beto O'Rourke looks as if he is going to be announcing sometime in the near future that he will challenge Governor Greg Abbott for this hotly contested governorship, a race that will occur in a year where we aren't entirely sure as to what type of year it is going to be, in which no major Democrats have announced that they are running for governor across the state. In fact, only one person is announced on the Democratic side, this public educator. I believe the name is Deirdre Gilbert. Not a recognizable name, not someone who is known statewide at all. This is a name that is essentially just a candidate who would be declared as a minor candidate and not a major one by any regard. Beto O'Rourke, however, would be the front runner immediately and a very notable name for this governor election. Now, in the potential column, Beto O'Rourke used to sit here for quite some time up until today, and we have Wendy Davis, who actually ran for governor in 2014 and lost. The circumstances of the year were not beneficial for her at all, but the Democratic Party saw something in her that ultimately did not end up with a margin of victory for Greg Abbott that was narrower than it should have been, and ultimately that was just a lost cause because of the circumstances of the year and because of the way the campaign was ran. But I think Democrats see something different in Beto O'Rourke, something that actually shows as a proven track record in the state of Texas. But again, looking at that potential list, besides Wendy Davis, you have Julian Castro, Joaquin Castro, people that are recognizable names amongst the Democratic Party, and Julian Castro, who I would say is a bit more recognizable across the United States. So looking at the Democrats in this race, Beto O'Rourke certainly will be the most recognizable, the most notable, the front runner by immediate declaration. I mean, he will not face a primary challenger that could actually challenge him when it comes down to the Democratic primary itself, which means that he would advance into a general election. Now, to give you a bit of an overview of the electoral history in the state of Texas, I remind you of 2018, a year that was good for the Democratic Party, but not necessarily in the Texas gubernatorial race. Greg Abbott defeated Lupe Valdez in this race by 13 points across the state. In 2014, Greg Abbott won by over 20 points against Wendy Davis. This margin of victory was larger than Mitt Romney's, a very notable one that Democrats ultimately were not able to make inroads in. In 2010, the Democrats lost this race by 13 points. In 2006, they lost it by 10 points. In 2002, they lost it by 17 points. In 1998, they lost it by 30 points. In 1994, they lost it by 8 points. And the last time it was held by a Democrat was in 1990, when Aaron Richards defeated a Republican opponent by around 2.6% across the state. 2.6%. That was the last time. 1990 through 1994 was the last time a Democrat served in the state of Texas as governor, which means that Republicans won consistently up until now, in which we don't know entirely how this race is going to go. Now, that might put you in a position where you view the state of Texas as one that won't be able to change, a state that the Democratic Party won't be able to make major inroads in, and I honestly don't think that is a fair characterization. If you take a look at the state of Texas's electoral history over years, you will see that Texas has significantly narrowed up over the past couple of years. In fact, for reference, if you want to take a look at the state's electoral history, in 2004, George W. Bush won Texas by 23 points. In 2008, John McCain won the state of Texas by 12 points. In 2012, Mitt Romney won it by 16 points. In 2016, Trump won it by 9 points. And in 2020, Donald Trump won the state of Texas by 5.6%. So disregarding the governor elections, and maybe even including them, what we know about Texas is that while it does have a strong Republican history in terms of who wins in the state, the margin has been getting closer and closer and closer to a point where now that's why Beto O'Rourke is running for governor. Another reason why he seems to be a top contender for the Democratic Party is because of his success. Now, Fox News refers to him as a twice-failed candidate, and it's very clear what they are trying to insinuate by calling him this, that he is someone who can't win across the state, someone who is not good for the Democratic Party, essentially propping him up to other types of Democrats who simply haven't had much luck in the state of Texas. But Beto O'Rourke, and I promise you this, is entirely different than any other Democrat who has ran in Texas in history and any other Democrat that will likely run in Texas in the immediate future. Beto O'Rourke in 2018. I want to bring you back to 2018 again, because yes, it was a good year for the Democratic Party, but they actually flopped when it came down to the governor election. They lost by 13.3% with Greg Abbott as the incumbent. But the Senate race, with Ted Cruz, one of the most recognizable names across the nation, the runner-up for the 2016 Republican primary, endorsed and campaigned by for Donald Trump, you have this Senate race in which Beto O'Rourke, as a representative, came within 3 points of winning the Senate election in Texas. Texas was closer than states with Democratic incumbents. North Dakota went to the Republicans by 10 points, Texas by 3. Indiana went to the Republicans by 6 points, Texas by 3. Missouri went to the Republicans by 5 points, Texas by 3. The margin in Texas was narrower than those races that Democrats deemed to be competitive. Mississippi, Tennessee, Missouri, Indiana, North Dakota, and while it makes sense that many of these states, the ones that I mentioned, were not necessarily competitive in 2020 versus Texas, they were competitive when it came down to the special election in Mississippi because it was an open race. They were competitive in Tennessee because Phil Bredesen decided to run in an open race. Indiana, Missouri, and North Dakota all had Democratic incumbents. But for Texas, of all states, to be one of the closest GOP victories is fascinating, considering that the only state that was closer than Texas in this election was the state of Florida. The only state that was closer for Republicans in the Senate elections than Texas was Florida. And the rest, even with Democratic incumbents, were larger margins because Beto O'Rourke was an individually and is an individually strong candidate for the Democratic Party. He's unique. He visited every single county in the Senate race in 2018, and Republicans should be worried about him for 2022. Because in 2018, Lupe Valdez did not nearly put in as much effort into this race as Beto O'Rourke did. The Democratic Party did not back her as much as they backed Beto O'Rourke. Looking at 2022, a lot is on the line. The resurgence of COVID-19, electric grids when it comes down to snowstorms and other natural disasters, questions about ability to serve and keep the state safe during times of need, questioning the abortion law that was just put into place in the state of Texas, the laws that have been put in place in Texas when it comes down to voting restrictions, when it comes down to abortion law, when it comes down to what is being proposed. You might think of Texas as a solid Republican state. Republicans only won the state by 5.6%. It's a matter of time as to when Texas eventually goes blue. It could be 2022, it could be 2024, it could be 2026, or it could be 2028. I'm going to guess 2028 at the latest. But with Beto O'Rourke's new announcement, or potential announcement that's going to be happening soon, Wikipedia says it's announcement pending, not necessarily a full announcement yet, which I completely understand. They want to be accurate in this reporting, but we pretty much know that Beto O'Rourke is going to be running for governor. He is going to be facing off against Greg Abbott, and he is going to be able to make the race competitive even if the circumstances aren't too beneficial for the Democrats. And looking at the preliminary polling data, while it may show that Beto O'Rourke is losing by 5 points, which is actually a pretty significant increase from University of Texas at Tyler, releasing a poll before showing him losing by 12 points, from a 12-point loss down to just a 5-point loss, that is very significant. And if you take a look at the state of Texas's electoral history in terms of polling data in the state with Beto O'Rourke was expected to lose the Senate race by 7 points. FiveThirtyEight, in their estimation, said that Beto O'Rourke would lose by 5 points. In fact, they say that he would lose by 5.2%. But he ended up only losing by 2.6%. The polls underestimated Beto O'Rourke. They shifted 4.2% to the left, benefiting the Democratic Party. And when you take a look at these Senate election results, you will see that Republicans have every reason to be worried about him for 2022. Disregarding his comment about guns, which I do think is going to hurt him, but won't be the reason why he loses if he ends up losing. But I do think, just looking at Beto O'Rourke's energy, looking at Beto O'Rourke's oratory skills, debating skills, ability to pretty much captivate a crowd in rallies, Beto O'Rourke certainly can inspire voters to vote against Greg Abbott. And one thing that might come in as a wild card, something that people would have been and will be bewildered by if it becomes a reality, is Matthew McConaughey running for governor in the state of Texas. In fact, he has floated with the opportunity publicly about running for governor in the state of Texas. We don't know how he stands. We don't know what his political party affiliation is. We know it's unaffiliated, but we don't know which way he leans. Essentially speaking, in our 2022 realm, in our 2022 Texas gubernatorial race, we could see not only the addition of Beto O'Rourke, which seems to be solid out of this point, but Matthew McConaughey, who seems to be polling actually surprisingly better than Beto O'Rourke when it comes down to this governor's race. So it will be a race that is certainly closely watched, and I do think that the Democratic Party should begin to start to back Beto O'Rourke and plant the seed that he is going to be that nominee and will be that general election candidate that will face off against Greg Abbott and potentially defeat him. The Democratic Party needs all of the energy that they can get in this race, especially if Beto O'Rourke does not want to become a three-time failed candidate, which I don't think will happen, but is within the realm of possibility. Just looking at the governor's election, Beto O'Rourke will be that notable Democrat that decides to run in this race. The question is, will he win this race? History tells me no. 2018 tells me no. I think that Beto O'Rourke would be able to utilize this to pivot into a Senate bid in 2024. But beyond that, I don't know exactly what his aspirations are, even when it does come down to the United States Senate, but there is a reason why he is deciding to run. Obviously, he cares about the voters. He is very passionate about campaigning, very passionate about what he stands for. But he definitely has an end goal that I do not think ends at the governor's mansion in Austin. I do not think that Beto O'Rourke will be one and done after running for governor and then moving on with his life. He's young. He's someone who is a very good speaker. He's also someone who is deemed conventionally attractive, which I think people also need to understand is a huge plus in American politics. There are a bunch of studies out there that show that more attractive candidates end up winning races. And I think that particularly speaking, in our recent elections, you have seen that happen in specific states, such as Georgia, now in Texas. You have seen increased media attention and media focus on conventionally attractive candidates like Beto O'Rourke, and it would be, I guess, wrong for me not necessarily to mention that when it comes down to my political analysis. I know it sounds a little bit weird to talk about something like that, but it is a very real reality that more attractive candidates do end up becoming viewed as more trustworthy, more credible, and end up winning elections. In fact, when you look at the actual numbers, most of the time, the more attractive candidate, as deemed by those in this study, will end up voting for that candidate, and 70% of the time, they end up winning the race. So obviously, that is not the only reason why the Democratic Party wants Beto O'Rourke to run. I think there are a number of things that go into this decision and a number of things that will ultimately contribute to Beto O'Rourke's electability in the state of Texas. He already has the statewide name recognition that another Democrat would need to build up. So from here on out, once he announces this bid, once he decides he's running for governor fully and sends in the paperwork and sends out the flyers and the campaign ads, he can start campaigning for the general election straight away. There will no longer be a need to challenge a primary opponent. Even if there is one, he will be entirely fine when it comes down to this governor election unless a very major name decides to run, and I can't even find one, really. Julian Castro, Joaquin Castro, which honestly I don't think either of them, would be able to defeat Beto O'Rourke in a potential primary simply because of his nationwide and statewide influence on the Democratic Party. But Beto O'Rourke has long been viewed as the gold standard for the Democratic Party. His margin of loss in 2018, while still was a loss, was the closest a Democrat has gotten since 1990. The Democratic Party has never gotten so close to the Senate election, not 1990, since the beginning of the 21st century. And Democrats in this position view him as their one and only, in a sense, savior that could actually make races competitive. I honestly think that the end goal for Beto O'Rourke will be to challenge Ted Cruz in 2024 and win that governor election, riding the wave of a blue wave year in 2024 if there is to be one. I think that's what Beto O'Rourke would like to do. But as of right now, it looks like he is going to be running for a governor of the state, and it looks like he is going to be giving Greg Abbott a run for his money. Greg Abbott has gotten very lucky with the candidates he has had in 2014, 2018, and now 2022. I think there's a lot that needs to be going into this race when it comes down to the analysis, and this is just very fascinating to see that 2022 is already starting to take shape on the Republican side. We already know who's going to run, and on the governor side, with Beto O'Rourke announcing soon his bid for governor of the state of Texas. It looks like he is coming back for a rematch, or not necessarily a rematch, but a redemption for his campaign. After losing the Senate race, after dropping out of the presidential race, he needs a victory. And he might be able to find it in this gubernatorial race, especially with a lot of the major issues that are happening across the nation and across the state. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch, and then a playlist for my 2022 election analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all tomorrow.